Hi everyone, thanks for joining us here today. My name is Louis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hubly. Hubly is a workflow tool for financial advisors. We're not going to be talking about Hubly today though. But just to get to know the audience a little bit before we dive into the chat here with Linda and Dani, is who here is an owner of a financial advisory or planning firm? Okay, basically everyone. Who here would rather be focusing on growth than day-to-day operations? Basically everyone. Most importantly, who here wants to be a good boss?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You guys? Okay.
Yeah, probably.
You guys are here talking about this. We have, first of all, Linda. Linda is the president and fearless leader of Peace of Mind Financial Planning. Linda also has her PhD in personal financial planning and is also the chair of the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors. But more importantly, Linda is an incredible leader, and I've had the pleasure of working very closely with Linda and her team on growing their advisory firm, and it's just been an absolute pleasure witnessing her journey. Dani, on the other end, is self-proclaimed personal finance nerd. She has a background of over 20 years in HR and operations, and now works very closely with Linda at Peace of Mind to basically service their clients and manage the team. And today, the topic we're going to be talking about is really around how to be a good boss. And what we've found, and we've spent a lot of time talking about this, is how can you help make your team as productive and, more importantly, happy as possible? How do you empower your team? How do you build an awesome culture that's going to get them bought into the work that they're doing in the day-to-day? And more importantly, how can we actually help address the talent gap in this industry around people not being trained enough to, empower and do their role properly? And so we're going to be having a chat about that, and I'm going to be doing a little fireside chat and really interviewing Linda and Dani here because I believe they've done an absolutely incredible job at this. I've seen how over 250 advisory firms operate and wanted to give them an opportunity to share their lessons and learnings with all of you today. So hopefully you can take something back to your team after this conference. With that being said, I have a couple of questions prepared. Linda, we'll kick it off you, just so everyone gets an idea of the firm. Can you just tell everyone a little bit about the firm, and we'll go from there?
Sure. The firm has two financial planners. You're looking at them, Dani and me. And we have 4 operations people and 1 virtual assistant. And our business model is flat retainers, and we only provide integrated planning. We don't do any one-off projects, or the only investment-only clients we have are ones that are financial institutions or nonprofit institutions.
Awesome. And Dani, I know you work very closely with the team. Mm-hmm. How have you kind of thought about structuring the team and creating roles for people and setting their accountabilities and responsibilities?
Yeah. So when we were setting up roles within the team, Linda and I, we're the planners. We're doing the client-facing stuff. The work that we do drives the revenue. So when we're structuring the team, it is how do we create more space for Linda and I to do the things that only we can do, and give meaningful roles to other people who have different areas of expertise, different areas that they're interested in, and make sure that those roles are nice and meaty. So that's where we came up with our research analyst and our operations specialists, and a couple of hours a week for a virtual assistant to help keep us on track. Mm-hmm.
How do you think your background in HR helped you actually define those roles for those individuals?
So background in HR, having built a few teams, having had a couple of teams evolve, being able to define a role for somebody so that they know what they're responsible for, so that you can then hold them accountable for that is super important. If you just say, hey, go do, and you give nobody direction or any reference material, they tend to fail, and then nobody's happy. And then you haven't saved the time to do the things that only you can do. You've just created another time drain. So that's one of the things that working in HR has really taught me about building teams and setting clear expectations, means that people can kind of relax into their role. They're not kind of wondering, oh wait, what are they gonna ask me next? Or did I do everything that I was supposed to do?
I think it's really powerful, like even as an entrepreneur myself, like we spend a lot of time thinking about this at Hubley is how do we create a role for someone and, set clear metrics for success and accountabilities that they're responsible for, and more importantly, setting them up for success, that there's clear outcomes that they're driving. And so just absolutely love what you had to say there. And so Linda, I think it's interesting that I have a lot of conversations with advisors, and there's normally a temptation that I need to bring another advisor into the business as like the first, solution to all of their problems. It's going to help us service more clients. But you instead, recruited and brought Dani on your team, which has more of an ops and HR background. I know she's done a lot of her financial advisory training and CFP recently, but why did you make that decision to bring in someone like her instead of duplicating yourself?
It's such a temptation to say, oh, I need somebody exactly like me, especially if they're going to be a successor. You may not know it by looking at the two of us, but I'm a little older than Dani. And so the intent is that ultimately Dani will be the primary lead in the firm. I'll ultimately fade out, and ultimately my head will hit the desk and I won't be an advisor anymore, and we'll bring more people in. But what was really important in terms of, with Dani and me in particular, was that philosophically we are the same. We have a lot of the same skill sets, but we also get excited about, and what Dani calls our happy places are different. So Dani gets really excited about building the tech stack. Literally, and I'm not exaggerating, I will say, do we agree on what we want the tech stack to do? Then she can pull in any team member she wants, goes off and builds the tech stack and says, now Linda, this is how you operate the tech stack. I can get through it just fine, but I don't want to vet all the different options. I don't want to build them. I just want to know how it's going to make me more efficient and make me serve my clients better. And so for us to have complementary skill sets, but you have to be, especially bringing in another planner, you have to be philosophically on the same page. Having tried to do that before and worked with some really good, smart people, if you're heading different directions, it's not good for the clients. If you're heading different directions and in conflict with each other, it's not good for the team either. So the operations and research folks that we have in the VA, they have a lot of autonomy to do what they do. And there will be times when, like Dani was saying, we'll say, do it this way. And they'll say, okay, if we want to get from here to here, here's a better way to do it. Great. It's not we're going to micromanage your job. It's we as a team are going to understand where we're going and build processes around that.
We've spoken about this quite a bit, but you guys have formed clearly a very powerful partnership, and I know what that's like. My co-founder at Hubley, we've been able to create an awesome partnership where there's clear roles and responsibilities, what we're accountable for. And it's quite nice having someone deal with the things that you hate and vice versa. And so, Dani, when you stepped into the firm, how did you decide what you're going to be responsible for, and what was that process you guys went through? And hopefully, share those lessons with some of the XYPN members here, because it's always a conversation. I need to bring on my first team member, or I need a partner. Like, how to think through those things?
So you think about, like I said before, the things that only the planners can do. We're the revenue drivers, the engine of the business, and all of that. So you look at what skills people have, what interests people have, and what makes the most sense for the business. And, kind of divvying those up. Danica Waddell did a great presentation, I think it was yesterday, and she had a great format for looking at that. There are the things you do well, the things you do poorly, things you enjoy, the things you don't enjoy. And focusing on the things you do well and you enjoy, that's your happy place. And that's where Linda and I like to live. So it's like, so how do you decide what you can outsource, things you don't do well or you don't enjoy? And how do you decide, those areas where, yeah, I enjoy it, but it's really not my best place in the business, because I can spend all day playing in the tech stack, but we also have clients and I like them too. So really sitting down and talking about what that looks like for your firm. Talking about what's your zone of genius is one of the ways that they talk about it. The things that you would get up on a Saturday morning to do, don't give that up. The things that you would you would rather go hide in the bathroom than do this next thing, find somebody else to do that. That is the best way. And then to do that successfully, you've got to outline it. You've got to be able to write it down, explain it, gift wrap it like in a little box, and hand it to somebody and let go. So being able to have, I come from an engineering background. Standard operating procedures, they sound boring. They're life-saving. Because you can hand somebody a task and you can say, here's what I need you to do. And thinking about your team or anybody you bring on, once you've given them that role, they become the expert in that role. And it's really important and really empowering for them to know what you expect, know that they can do it, and then when they get next level, as that frontline person who really understands the role, they'll come to you and say, hey, we should change this, or I'd like to tweak that. When they have that ownership, when they have that empowerment, that's when you start to see those team members really shine. So it's super important to make sure that you can give them that, trust them after you've trained them, so that they can go ahead and continue to grow and support you.
Who liked that? That was awesome.
Okay.
Whoa, okay. You answered a lot of questions there all in one, which is amazing. But I just wanted to recap a couple of things. I think what you've done is you have this really clear vision for how to empower people and to help them work on the things that give them energy so that they're happy and productive. Yeah. And this has actually, trickled down and created such a culture that has empowered your back office operations team to give them so much autonomy and power in what they're actually doing on a day-to-day, which has completely freed you guys up on a day-to-day to focus on the things that you love as well.
Yeah.
And so I totally understand how that's, changed your life. How would you guys say that's actually affected the firm and your relationships with the clients?
I'll hit that one because I was, prior to starting Peace of Mind Financial Planning in 2018, late 2017, I was in a very harmonious and successful silo practice. And my business partner and she had her clients, I had my clients. And so we had a whole bunch of really loyal clients that didn't work with our firm, they worked with me. At least that's how it was in their head. And like I said, I fully plan to just do this until they won't let me anymore. But I'm at a point where there's a little gray hair and people are thinking, how long are you going to be around to be my planner? The shift we have worked really hard to make, which has been a heck of a lot of fun, is to have people not think about, I'm a financial planning client of Linda Leitz, I'm a financial planning client of Peace of Mind Financial Planning. So one of the things that we've done is every single client is a client of the firm. They're not my client or Dani's client from a financial planning standpoint. They are our clients, and they're not just Dani's and my clients. They are the firm's clients. The only single person that they are assigned to, which could be replaced if needed, is their operations specialist. We have 3 operations specialists. And one of our mantras in the firm is, you have to love your clients. A colleague said that to me one day, and I said, you're right, we do have to like our clients. And he said, no, I didn't say you have to like them. You have to love them. And that really helped us start to figure out which clients are we working with that really aren't a match. We cringe when the phone rings. We kind of don't look forward to seeing them. They always challenge us, and it also helps us figure out, it's almost an internal joke when we have a sort of a vetting appointment with a prospective client. I'll go out and say to one of the operations specialists, guess what? And they'll look up at me and say, they were delightful. Yes, they were delightful. We'd love to work with them. Well, the operations specialists are actually a little, not predatory, but very what would you say?
Proprietary.
Invested. Proprietary, maybe a little proprietary, very invested in, this is my client. If I'm on vacation next week and so calls, please help them. So the entire team takes ownership of all of the clients. And Dani and I have worked into this year is the first full year when we will be doing what we call a third. A third of the client meetings with each client will be with me, a third will be with Dani, a third will be with both of us. So they always have a sense that we are your planners. Dani's up to speed on what happened in the appointment with me. I'm up to speed on what happened in the appointment with her. And we're both there for some of the appointments to work on things together with them. So the big shift for me, which I was delighted to see, is I do love all my clients, but they're not my clients, they're our clients. And being able to know that if, can I say it? If I get hit by a beer truck, my clients are gonna be okay, because there's a whole team backing up each client, and they're all gonna be okay. And not just, it was not hard for me to let go of them, because I do love all the clients. I have a fiduciary duty to them, and I want them to be okay whether I'm here or not, or whether Dani's here or not, and now we feel like they are. Can I add one thing?
Yes, shoot.
Part of what makes this work is process.
Yeah.
Process. And we've always been pretty organized. A lot of the processes were here or in that person's head or whatever. And having a system where you can always say, start the workflow on. And the first person starts it, the next person picks up their step, the next person picks up the step after that. And if there is a point of failure, we don't say, what did you mess up? We say, what do we need to fix in the process? Why did this not work the way that we wanted it to? Or do we need a process for this because it's happened enough times that we need to create a workflow for it and put it in our not-to-be-named software?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of powerful points that you mentioned there is just the what we at Hubley actually call customer obsession, you guys call clients that we love, and it's a real powerful value that you can incorporate into your business. And do we actually love these clients? And I like to look at it, I started this business, and am I passionate enough that I want to dedicate the next 7 to 10 years of my life towards solving their problems? And that's how long your relationship is going to be, at minimum, probably longer in the financial planning world. So you have to love these people. And so really love the way you put that. There's two topics that you mentioned there, which was the beer truck effect and the interchangeable operations associates. And I want to double down on both of those topics. One of the things we hear about all the time is, especially if you have someone in an ops role, an admin role, that they can almost never step away from the business because they control such a important administrative function. And so how have you set it up that your ops people are interchangeable and supporting the advisors, and that I'm sure they can probably take holidays or are encouraged to take holidays?
Yeah.
How have you made that happen? And feel free, either one of you, to answer that question.
Okay.
Ms. HR can tell you how they not only can take vacation, but must take vacation.
Why, thank you for setting that expectation. So, no, honestly, that's where having documented processes and having multiple people who understand those processes and ways to do the baton pass. When you're serving clients as a team, it's not a solo race. It's more like a relay. Sometimes it's a little chaotic, but you've got to have those baton passes. People have to know who's got it now, who gets it next, has it been passed, and what those expectations are. So writing things down is a very simple way to start to do that. And then making sure you don't have single point failures. That is kind of like my worst nightmare, is there's only one person who knows how to do that, which means that person never gets to go away. So when you start to do this, you are not just helping give yourself back time to focus on what you're best at. You're giving them the opportunity to have a balanced life, as well as working, in your firm necessarily. So having that ability to understand where somebody is, and if there is an expected absence, then somebody else gets assigned. But if there's an unexpected if there's an unexpected absence, then you know where to pick things up. You know where things stand, and you know what's next in the process, even if it's not necessarily normally your role. So having that in place really gives the team the ability to know it's like, I'm important, but I am not the end of the world, because that's a lot of stress. Not everybody's good with that. Not everybody performs well in that kind of situation. And I'm going to jump into the talent gap a
Go
little
ahead.
bit.
Yes, shoot.
And when you have these things in place, when you can have that standard operating procedure, that process, that workflow, it makes it so much easier to find people to fit that role. Because you can describe it, you can say, here's what I need, here's what I want. Because if you just go, I need help, well, what does that mean? But if you can describe it, you can find services, you can find people, you can do things like have shared roles. You know, our ops team, they're fabulous. None of them work a 5-day week. We have 2 who work what they call weenie full-time, 4 days a week, and 1 who works 3 days a week. And they pass things back and forth almost seamlessly because they know what's expected, they know where things are, they know what's important and what might be able to wait depending on how busy we are at any given time. And if you can define that and you can find that, if you have to find people locally, you've defined it. But you can also find people who may not live where you live. If you can pass those batons virtually, and if you can explain that role well.
Yeah, I don't think it can be understated, the talent gap that we have in this industry, like the amount of competition there is for employment just globally right now. It's really tough to find strong talent. And specifically, I find in this industry, there is a huge lack of talent, and we're commonly having to train people with very little or no experience in the industry. And it's a common complaint we hear from advisory firms is that I just want someone who'd be super experienced to come in and take all operations and admin off my plate. But unfortunately, that's not realistic given the industry and the talent gap right now. And so something we talk about a lot is that you need to set your business up so that you can bring in talent that might not be fully ready or ramped up to take over things. And it's a little slower, but you get them really bought into your culture and your vision for the firm like these 2 have done. It could have incredible returns for your business. Wanted to dive back to another topic that both of you guys have touched on is one is, removing the single critical point of failure. And then you mentioned the beer truck effect. And I like to always call it is how do we remove key person risk at the company? And so I'll go back to the first sales call that Linda and I did together, actually. We're like, why do you want to workflow software? And Linda said, I am terrified of the beer truck effect. And so I was wondering if you can explain the beer truck effect to the audience, and why was that such a terrifying thought for you, and how do you feel about it now?
I'll answer the last part first. I feel much better about it now, because, which doesn't mean I want to get hit by a beer truck. And I don't chase them, in case you're wondering. But what I was terrified of, because I do love my clients and I feel a huge responsibility to them, is I was terrified that something would happen to me and no one would know what to do. And suddenly the clients would be panicked and they'd be running for the hills and not knowing where to go for advice and wondering if their money was okay. And the people who were not financial planners at the time would do everything they could, but there wasn't the same type of relationship. Once the process is there and once everyone is empowered to do what they need to do for the clients have a greater sense of what one of my previous business partners used to call a sense of firm. They don't just have a sense that I'm okay because Linda's taking care of my money. They have a sense of I'm okay because the folks at Peace of Mind are taking care of my money. So that part of that process is in our workflows. Like I said, sometimes Dani will be in an appointment by herself. Sometimes I will be in an appointment by myself. Sometimes we'll be in an appointment together. We know that in each of those appointments, here's what the person who's leading the meeting is going to do. If we're both in there, here's what the backup person is going to do, and here's what the operations specialist is going to do. And we also introduce the operations specialists to their clients in their getting started meeting. So we sit down with clients after we've gone through the, the general, oh, we'd love to work with you. Oh, we'd love to work with you too. Please be our planners. Our getting started appointment, we set up their first 2 or 3 appointments and they meet their operations specialist. And because only 4 of us actually have offices in the office, one lives in Chicago, our research analyst lives in Colorado Springs but never comes in. He said when we came back from the pandemic, can I just work from home? It's working for me. Absolutely. Please do. So they get to know these people and they have a sense of, okay, I definitely know 3 people, plus if they interacted with somebody on the phone. It's just that whole sense that it's not about what's in here for me, and it's all about the process is there. If, and you've talked about talent gap and how do you train people. If 90% of the people in this room, if we're on the same page philosophically, if I did get hit by a beer truck and Dani called and said, I would love to have somebody come work with me at Peace of Mind, you could step right into my office, right into my shoes, right into the workflows that we have and do what we do. And to me, that's best for the clients. It also makes our jobs not 60-hour-week jobs. And it makes it rewarding for us. And the number of things we've gotten to where, and Dani's particularly good about this, she's helped me a lot on it. Every time we have a, how do we solve this? She says, what's out there that will solve this? Not, let's sit down and write out a bunch of workflows, or let's sit down and find a contact manager, let's write everybody on an index card or in a virtual index card. What are the solutions that are out there? Vet them. Make a list of what you want them to do. Make a list of the have to do this. It would be nice if they do this. I don't want to work with it if it does this. And go through and vet your solutions, because when you do that, once you put a competent person in the seat for that workflow, it's going to flow. It will happen.
That's really awesome. I'm actually curious, just with the audience here, who introduces their operations or admin team to clients directly? Interesting, okay. A couple sort ofs. It's a really interesting strategy. I actually haven't heard that communicated so clearly, that they're actually embedded in the client relationship from the start. And I'm assuming clients can email your operations associates directly, and they don't even have to come to you necessarily.
Well, and what we've kind of actually started working through with the clients is, Linda and I are here for your planning, and we love to answer questions. When you email both of us, and whoever's available can help answer specific questions. Also include your ops specialist, because they're the point person on paperwork, trades, distributions, which are typically something people want done timely. And when we tell the clients, Linda and I spend most of our days in meetings. If you need something fast, your operations specialist is going to be right there taking care of you. And oh my goodness, are they on that? In the second it comes in, so-and-so needs a distribution. How do I get it out of there? I'm like, okay, it's been 5 minutes. Here, you start the flow. It's like, well, what I need to know is it, yep, we're good. And once they have that confidence of how it gets done, I mean, they grab that stuff so fast. And the other thing about having them on the email trail is, should Linda and I occasionally miss an email or be a little slow to respond, they're like, it's been 2 days since so-and-so emailed this question. Can you please answer them? They really help keep us on task. And they couldn't do that if they didn't know what was going on.
They also couldn't do that if they didn't feel like we trusted them. Because that's the other thing. I mean, one of them in particular, we tease them sometimes about, your nagging skills are way above average.
Oh yeah.
Good
Totally.
job. But we want that. I mean, if we've missed an email from a client that they read and they thought, man, if I were the client, I'd want this answered in the next couple of days, and they haven't done anything, thank you. And we always tease them, your nagging skills are great, thank you. I did let that fall through the cracks. I appreciate you following up. So a lot of it's that whole integration of all of us working together because we want the clients to be happy and well.
That's brilliant. I'm going to take that on my sales calls and start recommending that, so thank you. I want to switch gears here to two last questions that I have, and then we'll open up to Q&A of the audience. Feel free, either of you, to take a stab here. Dani, maybe for you on this, or Linda. You guys choose. One of the things I think quite a lot about is financial advisors are typically really awesome at being financial advisors, right? You know everything you need to know about clients' money, you know, financial planning software, all those things that I don't even know. But a lot of advisors, I think, forget that they're also business operators, owners, and entrepreneurs, and there's not one or the other. And so how do you think your mindset has evolved? Maybe, Linda, you can kick this off in, I'm not just a financial advisor, I'm also a business owner and operator. And where has that taken you, and what sort of changes or ways have you challenged yourself in order to more embody that role as the company has grown?
One of the things that has been important for me is I do like the business ownership aspect, but again, the whole thing was on me, was difficult, and very soon after Dani and I started advising together, being financial planners together, it was clear that her ability to offer so much value in terms of being a co-owner was important. And again, very organically, but intentionally, we don't just assume one of us will pick up something and the other one will pick up something else. We talk about, how about if you approve time cards? How about if I'm the one who uploads the TD Ameritrade fees? Those type things. I mean, we just talk through what are the pieces we need to do. And we also learned, and this is something I learned in Strategic Coach, don't look for who's going to do it, look for what service is going to do it. We have an outside bookkeeper. There are just certain things that it's like, why would we be doing that? Yes, as business owners, we want to have a sense of the finances of the business and a lot of those things, but do we really need to be doing the debits and credits every day? Do we really need to be paying invoices? Sure, we need to know what the cash flow is, but we don't need to be the one that goes in and says, click here to pay this invoice. And so there are so many things like that, again, same philosophy, different happy places. Every once in a while, we kind of do a rock, paper, scissors. Ooh, I lost that one, I got to take it. But both of us have ownership responsibilities, and we look for solutions that aren't us, sometimes within the team, often outside the business. What would you add?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I came out of being a W-2 employee, for 20 years. And stepping into a role where not only were we responsible for clients' finances, which is an awesome responsibility, but then you're also responsible for your team and making sure that they're well cared for, that they're happy, that they're interacting well, that they're paid regularly, yes, and appropriately. Doing all that, that was a big responsibility and a big step, and making sure that we focus on the things that we're best at, that we maintain those client relationships that the firm has worked on for years, and make sure that those clients are well cared for. And then when we run into a hiccup, don't just charge on and make it worse. Take a pause. Don't search for the guilty, but figure out where the breakdown was, what caused it, how do we fix it, and then keep moving forward.
That's awesome. I was actually curious, Alan and Michael, when they did their XYPN report at the opening session there, did everyone see the massive growth in outsourcing that's happened in the last year? And just curious, show of hands, who's at least outsourcing one thing in their business right now? Awesome. That's really great. That's awesome to see. I think even Hubley can do some more of that. That'd be great. I think something that's interesting in that mind shift switch that we normally see advisors go through is there's this real, giving up control is the way I like to see advisors. There's this real need in the early days when you're, passing the 30, 40 clients, where you have this strong need where you felt and held on to everything in regards to the client experience, and there's such fear to let go of a portion of that because it might destroy the client experience. But I think what you guys have clearly shown is that actually letting go of control might improve the client experience and not make it worse. And so just wanted to highlight that. I think it's it's very connected to some of the topics that I talk to advisors a lot about. And it's crazy to hear that after giving up control, there's a lot of fear that it's going to get worse. It actually got better.
It gets so much better.
I think a lot of the conversation we've had today is, quite philosophical. And are there any, practical one thing that someone can walk away with and implement, tomorrow that you guys would recommend that's, really further removing you from the day-to-day? Are there any tidbits you're exploring or looking back at it that you're like, that's the one thing that I would have done sooner?
I definitely would have hired at least administrative staff sooner, whether it was a 1099 person or a service or something. One of the things that was said by Michael last year at XYPN was, he said, let go of the things that are not what you get paid for. How many of your clients say, I love how you filled out that Roth paperwork? That's not why they hire us. They hire us to tell us they need a Roth, to do a Roth conversion, to tell them the tax implications. And so I think letting go of those things, and I'll invoke one of my mentors, Bert Whitehead, when I joined ACP, way back in the day. One of the things he said is, when you hire someone to do something that's not your unique ability, one of two things will happen. Either they'll do it worse than you or better than you, and egotistically, they're equally painful. And so a lot of times just letting go of that thing of, I'm not here to fill out your Roth paperwork. I'm here to talk to you about why you need a Roth. So hiring somebody that complements your skill set. And I think what we have seen in our team is that the whole group gets that if we're doing our job well and they're doing their job well, we're all making more money and we're enjoying our jobs more.
Yep.
What would you add?
I have to follow that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually going to
You can either do it worse or better.
well, I'm going to lean on the team and bring up one of their pain points, because that's part of being a good boss, is addressing your team's pain points. Scheduling and meeting reminders. Oh my gosh, our team is fantastic. Our calendars are insane. The fact that they manage that on a day-to-day basis amazes me. But finding tools that that smooth out those pain points with less human interaction, not more, can really help.
I have one last question here for you, Linda, before we open it up to Q&A. I was listening to a podcast that you did with Kitses in 2019, and he asked you, what does success mean to you? And you said, it's really about making a difference in my clients' lives and, more importantly, my team's life. Has that definition of success changed for you?
It hasn't changed for me. I had some rocky times a couple or 3 years ago, and what I have found is having the right team and giving them the right sense of respect and responsibility makes all the difference. And you were talking about long-term relationships with clients. This month, a few business days ago, we met with my most long-term clients, and they are our clients, but I have worked with them for 28 years. And they consider me, and now all of us, family. It just doesn't, I get paid for this. And it just doesn't get any better than that for me. And I feel like that goes into my personal life too. My adult children get how important it is to me. The people that I care about get how important it is to me.
Awesome, thank you for sharing that. Let's give a quick hand of applause to Linda and Dani, and then we'll open it up to questions by the audience.
Thank you guys so much. I have 2 young women working with me, and I think they're fabulous. My biggest fear is losing them. So I'm trying to just continuously do things to help them grow in their positions and offer value to them, like both within how we run the business as well as other, things that are going on in their lives. What's some key things that you guys think of or you think would be good for us to try to incorporate as we hire to try to really just like keep the right people in the right seats and make sure we don't lose them if, assuming everything else is going well?
Okay, so making sure that you have room for them to grow, because if you cap them, they'll leave. They'll go find it somewhere else. So if you've got the room for them to grow, figuring out what they can offload and to who and how you do that, whether it's a person, whether it's a service, whatever, freeing up their capacity so they can do the things that light them up, that's the kind of thing that will keep them with you.
And the other thing I would say is don't be afraid to lose someone. 3 years ago, there were 4 of us. Now 2 of those people, including me, are part of the team. The entire team of 6.5 that I just described has come in. I used to laughingly say, Dani loves this. The clouds parted, a hand came down, and Dani was sitting on it. So
Yeah, I love that.
And so a lot of times when you're just being open to what might be out there that actually is better than what you think is good right now, you might end up with some very pleasant surprises. So if Dani's always really good about saying, but if it's not good for the business, we can't have the employee do that. If that's not, that may be their happy place, but that's not what the business and the clients need. So don't be afraid to lose people, because sometimes even though you lose good people, people who are a better fit come in.
Thank you. That was amazing.
A very quick one. You casually mentioned a research analyst position at your team, and I was like, wait, what? What is that? That sounds great. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What does that involve, and why did you decide that you needed that position?
The research analyst is the other of the 2 that was left standing when we had some pretty sudden turnover, and research analyst was the best title we could come up with. He has an undergraduate degree. He was an honors student at UCCS, University of Colorado Springs. In finance. He does investment research. He builds spreadsheets if we're needing to do something until we get a software solution for it. He preps for investment appointments. He follows up with clients on things. He sends out and designs surveys. The bottom line is, if it's hey, his name is Cale. Hey, Cale, we need someone to, rebuild this desk. Okay, he'll do it. He's just, he is really a jack of all trades, and he is one that probably in our existing team, he's probably the closest we have to a potential single point of failure, just because he fills so many roles. If he were if he got hit by a beer truck, we'd have to say, what software are we getting? Who's going to take on different duties? But the research analyst he does love research. He's also the one that really makes tax season hum at the beginning. When we say, what's the best process, because we do tax returns in-house, what's the best process to receive data, put it into the initial software, check the return, send the return to the client, we pretty much will say, Cale, could you think about this? And 15 minutes later, look at this spreadsheet. What do you think of this as a workflow on that? Okay, we're done. So having someone who can you can say, go in the back room, get on your computer, look this up, figure out how it can work better, or figure out the answer to this really unique question that a client just asked. That's where he is. And he and I now have worked together 8 years. Our clients will all say, gosh, Cale has been here so long. And he's happy, we're happy, and he's another example of flexibility is key. He loves soccer. He's a part-time soccer coach. So this time of year, it's just on the calendar. Every day at 2 o'clock, Cale is not available. He might check his Slack at 11 o'clock at night and answer some questions, but he's just got he's a good thinker, good skill set, kind of a unicorn.
Yep.
It's definitely not just a research associate.
And he helped us with our workflows quite a bit.
Other questions?
I guess this is a Hubley question for y'all. How many workflows did you build out in your
Fingers, toes. Everybody's fingers and toes. We
Somewhere north of 50?
Yeah, we were using workflows in our, these two questions work well together. We were using workflows in our current CRM, and we're very happy with our CRM. But Kale was the only one who wouldn't break a workflow when we needed to change it. And so when we basically took all the workflows that we had in our CRM, used some of Hubley's pre-existing workflows, translated our workflows into several workflows and assigned different team members to them and everything, and also assigned some kind of who's the lead, who's the follow in this particular appointment type thing. But yeah, pretty much if a spouse dies with a client, if a client leaves, if a client starts, if they're going to have a rollover, if they're going to have a Roth conversion, if they're going to, I mean, they're filling any blank in the, if a client is going to, we have a workflow for it and everything flows.
Yeah, and the operations team has built internal workflows for their repetitive tasks to make sure those are all getting completed and all getting done timely. I have to say the difference between last year doing RMDs and QCDs with our clients and this year doing RMDs and QCDs, huge control issue. The operations team, I can tell them about their nickname, right?
I think so.
Okay. So the operations team has named themselves the Three Amigas. So we'll refer to the Amigas. The Amigas did that process this year. They reached out to the clients because they have those relationships and said, all right, you have this much left in your RMD. You did QCDs last year. Do you want to do them again? Do you want to do the same ones? Do you want to change them? And Linda and I are like, oh, wait, that's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Amigas will say, we think we need a workflow for this. I built a draft one in Hubley. We're not going to use it yet, but would you go in and look at it and everybody say, yes, do more of this, do less of that, move this step forward, move this step back. We need a different conclusion here. We need to have this one trigger our next workflow. I mean, it really is just standing back and watching the poetry in motion because that's not the value we add. It's the value they add, and they do a really good job of it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you both for your time today. I was just curious more if you could talk about maybe how you two got linked up together. And more specifically, Dani, just your journey going from a W-2 employee to a part owner of the practice. Just for some perspective, I work at a large broker-dealer, going through an integration, and I'm, maybe a year away from working through a similar journey that you possibly had went through. So just curious about how you two got linked up and how that was for you.
So I started as a client. I went out and I found the kind of planner I wanted. My husband and I work really well together on money. He's like, can I afford to go hunting? Yes, honey. He's done. He doesn't want to know anything about it. Now, I think it's all cool and fun, but I needed a sounding board. So I found Linda and Linda's firm, and we became clients. So I walked in having just listened to Linda's podcast with Michael Kitsis. So I walked in with my spreadsheets and, oh my God, it's so great to meet you. I just listened to your podcast. And she's like, oh my God, she's crazy. But it stuck. I had already decided I wasn't going to do HR anymore. And I was working on a financial coaching designation because I didn't want to end up in a position where I was selling insurance, which I thought I'd have to do with no experience. So that was part of it. But we
Do I get to take over now?
please.
So we had some rather sudden departure of a couple of people. One of them was the junior advisor, and Dani called and said, I need some experience hours for my accredited financial counselor designation. Could I volunteer at your firm? And I said, no, you can't volunteer. We're not a nonprofit. And so she thought she was going to do data entry, and I was like, oh no, I need you sitting in meetings, taking notes. And there will be some softball questions I can throw you. And after 2 weeks, I said, why are you not being a financial planner? And she said, because I thought it'd be boring, but this is fun. And so I said, here's the deal. Get your Series 65, and you'll go from being a 1099 to an employee. Get your CFP, and you'll be a co-owner, and she's a CFP. So that was our journey.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, heaven's opened, hand came down.
And I say it's the confluence of luck and being prepared.
Yeah.
I'll ask a follow-up there. How did you find peace of mind?
A lot of Google searching, looking for a firm that was going to be all in. I didn't just want investment management. That's kind of table stakes. Really wanted an interactive process that was going to take into account more of what me and my spouse wanted from life rather than just having money. So that was a big part of finding peace of mind.
And she found it in the Google search, and I'm sure all of you know this, and I am as far as you can get from a marketing expert, but your website, you want people to know who you are.
Yep.
You look at our website, we're dressed like this. We are not dressed in suits with the, sitting at the desk looking thoughtful. We're in jeans and shirts in front of the mountains. That's who we are. You come to our office, that is our dress code. Our dress code is clothes. So, we want our clients to be comfortable. We want to be comfortable. And that kind of came out of the pandemic. About halfway through the pandemic, we sent out an email that said, we have figured out we are no less smart when we wear jeans. From now on, when you come to our office, we won't be in business casual. We'll be in casual. Now, if you come on Monday or a Thursday, when we don't have client appointments, no telling what you're going to see because we wear whatever we want.
Yep.
When pre-pandemic, the intercom was you yell down the hall. Since then, we've been using Slack. When somebody gets a compliment from a client, we put it in the general. We don't put it in one-on-one. The so-and-sos said Kathy is wonderful. They love her. We agree. It's the type thing where the positive reinforcement, you got to give that immediately. And if something fell through the cracks, you do it very privately. We do address annually raises, and people kind of have a sense of, May is my month or June is my month or whatever. But basically the immediate feedback is it.
First of all, just want to say thank you. If we can do one more hand of applause here for Linda. Clicker?
Oh, clicker, what do you want?
While the clicker's going, I personally really wanted to do this session today because I think there's a lot of focus at these conferences about the financial planning aspect of the job and not enough focus on the business owner and entrepreneur part of the job. And so just wanted to say thank you guys. You guys, I think, have really humanized, being business operators and owners and yet, still running a financial planning business. And for me, it's very inspirational to see how you operate your team, how you guys speak about it. I personally have learned a lot from it as a business owner and entrepreneur myself. And I always like to say that people problems are the hardest challenges you'll ever solve. And I think you have really done it and done an epic job at it. So. If you want to learn more about Hubbly, I know we didn't talk about that today because it was not the goal. We are XYPN partners, and check us out on the portal. So thank you very much.